video,
get your
and
gear
now we
going.
can start our rodeo.
All right.
I don't know. That's not a thing. We don't really need to have a rodeo.
I don't know what that
Brian, I'm willing to
means.
bet you've never been to an actual rodeo, have you?
I'm trying to think if I have.
You have to think about that?
I do have to think about it.
You don't think that if you have ever been to a rodeo, you would remember it?
I'm trying to remember. I think I have once, but I
Really?
legitimately can't remember.
What about a monster truck thing? Have you ever been to see monster trucks?
That I think I would remember. No, I've never been to a monster truck thing.
So you think you would remember a monster truck event, but a rodeo maybe could have flown under your
I
radar?
believe that I played in a pep band in my high school at a rodeo. I believe we took advantage,
okay.
but it was like I didn't drive there. I was like in the band doing band things, so I was not just there to spectate, which is why I have
see.
vague memories of it, but I don't 100% remember what happened. I also could have dreamt it.
Interesting.
I'm not 100%. I'm pretty sure I did. I don't know. None of this is important. Let's get to it, shall we?
Yeah.
Good pre-roll. Anyway.
Yeah.
Hey everybody, welcome to episode number 20 of the Goulet Pencast, where fountain pens are still a thing. I am Brian Goulet.
And I am Drew Brown.
And we are here from Goulet Pens to deliver this casual and informal, tangential and extraneous, superfluous and extemporaneous fountain pen show where we talk about what's going on at the Goulet Pen Company and in our fountain pen lives. In today's show, we're going to be talking about different filling mechanisms, how they might influence your ink flow, getting laughed at for using a fountain pen, and inks that might be good in cookbooks, which is legitimately the first time I've ever been asked about that. So, should be fun. We got other stuff to talk about too. But Drew, it's kind of a milestone. 20 episodes, nice round number. I don't know. It's a thing, right?
It is a thing, and considering how the first episode, we were absolutely clueless as to what this was going to become or what we were even doing.
Yeah.
I'm pretty proud of ourselves, Brian.
I am, and at the same time, I'm like 20 episodes. I feel like we should have it a little more together after 20 episodes.
Oh, your standards are too high.
Yeah, I mean, after several hundred Q&As, thousands of other videos, I guess, you know, we just sort of plateau, and then this is what you get. So you can't expect continuous improvement in this situation. So as long as you keep your expectations realistic, we're going to have a great show today. Unlike last week where I promised it was going to be literally the greatest thing you've ever watched. I don't know if that was the case, but we got some feedback, Drew. So let's start off with our first segment, shall we?
We do have some feedback, and speaking of greatest thing ever, we did ask you whether or not you had a favorite Little Debbie or Hostess cake. And Brian, the star of the YouTube comment section, ended up being the zebra cake by Little Debbie.
Okay.
Small Deborah and her zebra cakes. And that was followed up by the Star Crunch. And this was due to a super rudimentary me just kind of looking and feeling what I think people said the most.
Okay.
So totally official, totally legit there. Star Crunch, zebra cakes.
Pretty legit.
Solid choices, yes, sir. And then I mentioned my favorite brown things, brown inks, brown pens, and I got a lot of great other brown recommendations. They're so hard to pick. Kiowa Pecan popped in a lot.
That is a good
by
one.
Noodlers.
That
is a really good
about
one. I mean, really, go to our website, go to inks, search by brown, and pick a bunch of them and enjoy them because they're all wonderful and probably underrated. So enjoy.
All of them are underrated.
They are. Like, it's definitely the most
Kinda
underrated
true.
color. I'll give you that. That's a thing.
Think so? You think? Would you argue to say that brown is the most underrated ink color?
Brown or lime green, I would say. Yeah, I think that people sleep on lime because it doesn't show up really vibrant, but some of them look really, really great.
They do, but as a color as a whole, though, I don't know. I wouldn't say.
Yeah, as a color on a whole,
it's hit or
but
miss.
brown definitely.
Yeah,
Brown. Anyway, Pamela on YouTube said this about me. Loved Drew getting coffee grounds in his teeth. His face was wonderful. And the calm after swishing water. Been there, done that. So this exact thing happened during the last Pencast. I was drinking my coffee, finished it, and a coffee ground right there in front.
Wow.
And I was just amazed that Pamela knew exactly what
Wow.
was happening, what had happened. I feel like if I saw that same face, that same series of faces happen on somebody else, I would probably draw the same conclusion, Pamela. But I appreciate you empathizing with me there.
Wow, did that happen while I was talking or something? I don't remember that at all.
Definitely.
Wow, good job, Pamela. Seems like you.
Yeah.
Seems like you.
She knew.
She sees you, Drew. You are seen and heard.
Yeah. If you drink enough coffee, it's gonna happen.
That's right.
And just a reminder, we had at least one person ask if this could be available, the Pencast, as an audio format, and it most definitely is.
Yeah.
You can find our audio of what we're going to be saying here, as well as what we said on the previous 19 Pencasts, on wherever you get your podcasts. So just a reminder there. If you don't want to look at us, you can definitely just listen. You can do that now, I guess, but anyway, it's also a podcast.
I would venture to guess most of the people watching us on YouTube have us in some unseen tab as they're browsing and doing something else. So I don't know.
Chores, dishes, you betcha.
Anything, something more productive. But some other feedback. We got Aaron from YouTube says, Brian, that is exactly the way that I eat Swiss cake rolls, refrigerated and all. Back in high school, we used to buy a box of Swiss cake rolls for every volleyball tournament and keep them in the cooler so they were nice and chilled. Every time I eat one now, my husband comments on my eating method while he, like a monster, just bites into one. I gotta say, I hadn't had one in a really long time, and then maybe 6 months ago I had it, and I just like bit into it. I just didn't have the patience. I didn't have the patience to undo it. And then the next time I undid it, and I was like, okay, this is more nostalgic. So
this is the way.
I can go either way. I don't know. That kind of feels like string cheese. Like
don't say something you're going to regret, Brian.
I'm just saying with string cheese, some people peel it. Other people just
because that's called
right
string cheese. It's not called cheese log.
They are often called cheese sticks. It's not necessarily string cheese.
That's true.
Neither of my kids string them. They both just go right into them, and it broke my heart a little bit. But
okay,
they like Colby Jack better now anyway, which doesn't really string like mozzarella.
No, you pull your cheese, you string your cheese.
I can go either way. I don't have firm. I will generally try to string, but you know what I hate, Drew? When you grab like the middle and you get like half the string, and it like gets to a point like 3/4 of the way down, and you got this weird like triangular floppy part, and you're like, what is this nonsense? And then I just start biting it. So if I have a properly behaving, participating string cheese, I will string it every time. But if it starts going rogue on me, then I just end it.
That's fine. We can still be friends.
Okay. Got some overwhelming support for going back and continuing to fill in old journals. This is a theme that I had last time, was I found a bunch of journals that were like several years old and just wondering how to dive in. So the content is what's important, most people said, not the format or the organization. And that's good to hear, because sometimes I definitely overthink it, and then that stops me from writing it at all. So I definitely promote, like, just write it down, get it in there, don't overthink it. But then that's harder to do in the moment when it's your own thoughts. And then Chicken Infinity on TY, it says. On TubeU. Next week on the Goulet Pencast, Brian eats a bowl of black licorice smothered in horseradish. I am not joking. I feel a pit in my stomach and like a lump in my throat just reading that. I did when you put it in the notes before we recorded. And I thought, like, okay, I know it's coming now, but I just had a visceral reaction even reading it again.
Oh my God.
Like, I actually feel a little bit nauseous just thinking about that right now. I'm going to move to the next comment. That sounds disgusting. Holly on YouTube says, I really loved the high-level, behind-the-scenes chat. It shows just how much you and your team really care. Not only the products you sell, but the whole experience at GPC. The amount of time and dedication you put into your business is really admirable. Keep up the great work. We appreciate it. Well, thank you, Holly. Just loving on us and our team. That is really cool to hear. All right. We got some new stuff to talk about here. Truth be told, I didn't look at all the details, so I'm just going to give you a very cursory overview for the things that I have to talk about, one of which is the new Namiki Emperor Coral. Now, this is the big one. This is the big old Emperor flat top. This is, it's a collector's pen for sure. 99 pens. It is up there in price. You're into the 5 digits with this one, $15,000 MSRP. But you're paying that because it's a gigantic pen with tons of Urushi Makie artwork on it. It looks amazing. It's coral themed, coral as in like the marine life. Looks really cool. That is about all I have to share. I think it's medium nib only. Maybe it has a broad. I'm not sure, but they don't have the full range on this one, but gorgeous pen though. So we'll have that for a little bit, but there are not a ton of them. And then LAMY has a Dialog Urushi leaves. So this is a metal LAMY Dialog with Urushi lacquer over it. So way more collectible, way more rare and special and pricey than your typical Dialog would be, but looks pretty incredible. We're going to have a very limited selection of those because LAMY did not make many of them. I think we were supposed to get it months ago, actually, but delays with COVID and the whole thing. So I think those are going to be launching next week, perhaps. So be on the lookout if you're interested in Urushi covered things. Those are both of the things I just talked about. Drew?
Urushi update. Today, which is Wednesday, when we're recording this, by the time you listen to this, we will have, well, either way, we launched a Retro 51 Popper, which is a here for a second, gone for a second pen, limited edition. And it was Halloween themed. It was this pen, the Sleepy Hollow.
Oh, you're flaunting it now, aren't you?
Well, I'm demonstrating.
I was wondering if you were going to show
demonstrating. Well, I'll put up a better image. But we got it a little bit late. We got it a little bit past other retailers, and it sold out in 3 minutes. With these Retro 51s, some of them hang around for inexplicable reasons, and then a lot of them are just gone in like 2 seconds. So Retro's a weird one for us.
Yep.
And it's just the popularity, it ebbs and flows. Sometimes it's insanely high, and sometimes it's not.
It's very hit or miss. The timing was good on this one, though. Everybody's got Halloween on the mind. This is a really good themed Halloween pen, but we should stop talking about it because now no one will be able to find it. It'll be on eBay for like $200. It'll be ridiculous.
Yeah. So they do seasonal ones, but keep your fingers crossed, and maybe you can get one for next season. And Rickshaw, well, you know what? Hey, if you didn't get the Sleepy Hollow Retro 51 rollerball, you can still probably get the matching Rickshaw single pen case. So you can put another pen in there.
We were talking about it this morning. I didn't know if we were going to be able to get more or not. We're trying to anyway, but we might.
So that is going to be more available than the pen. I'll say that at least.
Yeah.
The hype wasn't equal to the case as it was to the pen. So that might still be available. And then in addition to that, we're going to be carrying some new Rickshaw stuff that is going to be ongoing. We'll have 2 new koozie cases from Rickshaw, both with alternate versions of the kind of ink in water situation that we have going on with our blue Goulet exclusive one. Do you have them, Brian?
What? Sorry.
You look like you're pulling out something.
Nope, I'm thinking about the next question, actually.
Oh, gotcha. And then headphones. Never mind. I am tethered. And then we're also going to be carrying a third koozie case, which is going to have Van Gogh's Starry Night on there. So if you are a collector or just a fan of Visconti's Van Gogh collection, that might be a great home for your Van Gogh-inspired fountain pens. So yay for that.
Woohoo.
Yes.
All right.
And then we can move on to Q&A if you're ready, Brian.
Yeah, well, clearly distracted, but yeah, I can get ready. All right, let's take some questions, shall we? Yeah, Drew, you got the first one, so go ahead. I'm looking for the pen that I want to talk about. That's why I'm causing this big old ruckus over here.
All right, well, maybe I'll talk slowly.
No, you're fine. Just
go for it. Emma, 1996 NL, asks us, Brian, does the size of the opening of a cartridge or converter influence the flow or wetness of a pen? Meaning, some pens, some converters, like the Standard International cartridge converter, has a very, very narrow opening that fits into the grip section of the pen. And some of them have a very, very wide opening, like Pilot. Big gaping
Pilot. Sailor also has a big wide opening. Yeah.
Yeah. So does that affect the flow of the ink through the feed to the nib onto the paper?
Yeah, so I mean, basically, to if you're not super familiar with how these things work, if you have any pen that has a converter, it's going to have some degree of a narrowed, tip on it that fits over top of some kind of, post or something that grabs onto. That can vary depending on the brand. Your Standard International is a little on the smaller side. Things like Pilot, Sailor, those openings tend to be wider, actually closer to the opening of the It's basically like the width of the body of the converter, right? It doesn't taper quite as much. So what you're asking here is, will you have a wetter pen if you have a wider opening on your converter? That would be the logical assumption. The ink's allowed to flow through more freely, I guess. The short answer is no, it doesn't really make a difference. Basically because the way that ink is flowing through the pen, anything that happens at the converter level is like further upstream, right? So it's like it's happening before other things are happening. So whatever's going on up there doesn't really impact the actual flow itself, because the flow is regulated by the feed. I mean, the feed is essentially, that's what it is an ink regulator. So it's got a channel that's cut through that feed. It has fins that are somewhere in that feed, whether visible on the outside or just on the inside in the grip of the pen. That helps to store some extra ink that's like on demand. And then the ink channel itself, as well as the stuff that happens with the metal part of the nib, that's really what controls the wetness of your pen. As long as there is just an adequate supply of ink that's coming down into the feed from the converter, which every converter supplies more than an adequate amount, because the feed channel is like, I don't know, fractions of a millimeter in width, and every converter is multitudes wider than that. So it really doesn't have an impact from what I can tell, just from one to the other. Now, of course, different pens that have different converters, the flow may be different, but that's really because of the feed design and the nib and other things that aren't specifically related to that converter. With the exception, there are some converters, particularly some of the wider ones, it seems sometimes, that the ink tends to want to maybe hang up in the back of it. Like especially, I know the Vanishing Point did that more years ago. That's part of why they put agitators in those pens. You know, they started doing that 7 years ago or so, because they were finding that as people were clipping them, you know, in their pocket, you know, essentially the ink would go down like towards the back of the converter. And then when they went to go write with them, that ink was hanging up in the back of the converter, essentially not making contact with the feed. And then it just wouldn't have any ink. So you could consider that to be a influence on flow or wetness, because it would basically like just not right. It didn't happen all the time, but it happened enough times where they made that change, put those agitators in there really for that purpose. So I don't hear about that happening a lot with pretty much any brand, but that theoretically would be kind of the only thing that would influence the flow based on the converter design, is if that ink kind of hangs up in the back. But as long as it's making contact with the back of that feed, then the feed controls everything else from there.
So, hear me out on this super smart, infallible analogy, Brian.
Okay.
If you've got a bag of water that's like a 3-gallon bag of water.
Yep.
And then you've got like a 35-gallon bag of water.
Okay.
And you take a little juice box straw.
Yeah.
You stab it into one and you stab it into the other. The amount, the flow of water coming out of that juice box straw is going to be the same on both ones, right?
Potentially. So then you get into things like pressure. You know, like if there's more pressure, that can force water to come through. So again, it depends on the vessel and it depends on all that. If you have such an extreme difference like that, it might make a difference. Basically because water has weight to it, and that weight itself may give more pressure. So if it's going through a straw, the weight of the water itself in a 35-gallon bag may actually cause more pressure and increase the flow. You know, it would be enough pressure to where maybe it would not be restricted by that straw to the same degree. But if you had something where it was like a little less variable, like say it was, a quart of water.
What if you poked it into the side of the bag?
In the side of the bag, then I think it would flow at the same rate. Yeah, it would be restricted.
So by that logic, like an eyedropper pen would feasibly have a much greater flow than a pen with a converter.
Not really, because I don't think that you have that much weight, that's being applied to it.
I'm just saying, but like if the opening did have an effect on the flow, then an eyedropper would be the wettest of them all.
It would, yeah. And sometimes sometimes eyedroppers can be that, because if they are an eyedropper pen,
but that's not because of the opening. That's because of the air ink interchange.
The reservoir. Yeah, if you have a large reservoir, especially if there's not that much ink in it,
right,
and you have a temperature variation or something that creates a pressure variance in there.
Yeah, that's an air issue.
That's a pressure issue. So yes, which I mean, I guess you could argue based on Emma's question here, she's just talking about the opening of it. She's not really talking. Theoretically, you could have more flow if you had, a larger converter. Well, she's actually talking about converters. There's no converter that is large enough where it would influence the flow, I don't think. The largest converter that I can think of is either like the TWSBI converter, the new one on the swipe, maybe, or the PilotCon 70. Each of those are around a milliliter. But you're talking about a milliliter versus maybe a half milliliter on the smaller converters. I don't think that amount of ink or air or whatever is going to make any difference in the flow. I think it really is, it's more restricted by the feed. I think at some point, yes, you would have enough pressure, enough volume, whatever, that it would overcome the restriction of that feed just based on the actual capillary action of the water itself in the ink. And that could be overcome by pressure and forcing more through. Just like if you have a garden hose and you have 5 gallon a minute flow through your garden hose, that's because there's pressure behind it. Whereas if it's gravity fed, it might be less. So sometimes it can be restricted just by the container, but ultimately I think it doesn't really matter. You don't need to factor that into anything. We're just pontificating at this point, but yeah.
We need a physics professor in the comments to help us out on this one.
Yeah, I may be out of my depth on this one, so just let me know in the comments and I'll hang my head in shame. But it is a pencast, that's what we do. All right. Next question we have is from Ava Bucks, and Ava asks, what are your go-to doodles or words to write when holding a fountain pen? Drew, this is right up your alley.
I have a few, Eva. I have a few. I like writing the NATO phonetic alphabet, Alpha, Bravo, Charlie, all that. It's something I learned just for doodling and testing inks. So I do that every now and then. And then I'm actually a fan of MMA. I liked watching UFC and stuff like that. And I sometimes try to memorize all of the current champions, the current UFC champions, and write them down in order of weight class, which is kind of difficult because the last names always trip me up. But the thing I probably do most is just write down like 2-word combinations of randomness, a cheese loaf or something like that. I wrote down a couple few, like, oh yeah, Uncle Bucket is a nice one, waffle helmet, wombat loaf, biscuit football, fluffy nugget. I like to write apricot a lot. Apricot tornado is a good one. And then beef laser is that sounds cool, and that's a fun one to write. There's so many. Usually it's like a food and then some sort of clothing item or reservoir, like something you can put food into, or a shape. There's so many, but they always bring a smile to my face.
As it does mine. I take inspiration from your words. Do you have any go-to doodles? You definitely doodle. I've seen you doodle quite a bit. But
Ninja Turtles.
Ninja Turtles?
Yeah, I basically anything I'm halfway decent at drawing, I'm only decent at it because I've been drawing it since the 3rd grade. So I can do a pretty good Batman, a pretty good Ninja Turtle.
Nice.
That's about it.
Nice.
Yeah.
Me, I'm far less creative than Drew. I'm inclined to either just write my name or I write the name of the pen and ink that I'm using. Especially if I'm on video, my creativity goes 100% out the window. I'm literally just thinking about like the focus of the camera and the lighting and trying to make sure my hand is not blocking the nib and all that. And what I'm actually writing ends up being tertiary to any other thing. So it's usually scribbled nonsense. And you go back and watch the video and you're like, what the heck is he writing? He's just like scribbling randomly on the paper. That's because my brain is literally tapped out. So I respect Drew's doodle game. He shows me up left and right on that front. But I like your formula there, Drew. Take 2 words, like a food item in a container. Like that works because I can think about that, like water bag. That's pretty easy.
Monkey cup.
Monkey cup. There you go.
I like that.
Hair helmet.
I've seen that
it's
before.
Kind of a thing.
Yeah, in the 70s.
Yeah, fair enough. All right. Good stuff. Thanks for sharing, Drew.
You're welcome.
All right, next one.
Next one comes to us from Victor. And
say the whole name, Drew. Say the whole name.
I don't want to butcher something if this is actually his name.
Gazdag Victor.
Gazdag Victor.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It's not so bad.
Sorry. What is your favorite filling system and why? You know why I like this one, Brian?
I know exactly why you like this one. You like making me try to answer absolute questions, and I hate it.
You're so good at it, and you love it so much. Just dealing in absolutes.
I'm not an absolute guy, Drew. I'm open to all possibilities. I think that anything can work for anything. Not really. I love tinkering. So for me, I love vac fillers, and especially pens that I can disassemble and play with their parts. I just think that's really fun. Maybe not disassembled while it's inked, though I definitely have done that before, to a very dramatic outcome. So things that I can take apart are fascinating to me. I love TWSBIs, love Noodler's pens for a lot of that reason. So it's a little less about the specific filling mechanism and more about how many parts does it have, how interesting is it, how engineered is it, and can I have fun taking it apart? But that said, that's really just like one aspect to it. In terms of actual use, of just like writing with a pen on a regular basis, for me, I think the cartridge converter probably has to take it. Not because it's actually my favorite as its filling mechanism. It just suits my needs just as a just flat out utilitarian purpose, right? So like I change inks a lot. I know you do too, Drew. Just the ease of changing out an ink with a cartridge converter pen is really straightforward. You can use a bulb syringe to flush out every single cartridge converter pen that's out there. So cleaning it is a super breezy. And then converters, it's like, okay, I'll clean the converter, but I don't have to like clean it that well. If it's got a little hint of what was there before, I'm not going to sweat it too much, especially if it's a close enough color, and then if the thing ever poops out on me over time, I can just replace the converter. So just the maintenance and ongoing kind of stuff, you just don't have to be quite as concerned with kind of that ongoing aspect of it. So that probably wins out for me. I think some of it's availability too. Like there's just a lot more cartridge converter pens out there. So a lot of pens to be excited about in that family. How about you?
I agree with everything you've said. I find certain filling mechanisms more fun to actually fill. I like the way the demonstrators look when they've got an internal reservoir, but I very rarely stick with an ink long enough to exhaust a pen with a large capacity like that. So I definitely prefer the cartridge converter for sure. And I'm also very anal about cleaning my pens. I need that pen to look spotless, and especially with a vac filler, even you can clean that thing super, super well, but then when you're done and you put it back together, you get that last little and then
spritz,
and then it spritzes, and you're like, God!
And you're like,
you have to go
where did that come from?
I know, where was it?
It wasn't even the last color I had in this pen.
No, it's like up in the collar. It's
everywhere. It gets everywhere.
I know.
Yeah.
So yeah, cartridge converter for sure, no question.
Fair enough. I agree. All right, next question. This is from Sam Dacuna. Have you ever been laughed at for using a fountain pen? I'm 17 and kids at school think I'm George Washington. OFC, the jokes are always lighthearted.
Well, Sam, I've got some thoughts.
Hang on, real quick. I got to show my age. What does OFC mean? I'm not familiar with that.
I believe it's of course.
Of course.
Of course, the jokes are always.
Of course, the jokes are always lighthearted. Okay, cool.
I don't really know. That's what it felt like, though.
All right.
No, to answer your question, no, I've never been laughed at. I sometimes get that look.
Not for that purpose, anyway.
No. Laughed at for plenty of other reasons. Absolutely.
It's got to be clear about that.
Yeah. I have a standing appointment 9:30 a.m. every day for Brian to laugh at me for just, a different reason every day.
Yeah.
And so as far as being laughed at, no, but I definitely do get that look where someone is like, oh, okay, so people still buy that? And I was like, yeah, how much do they normally cost? Oh, this much. They're like, okay. I guess people are if they like that. I'm like, ew, like don't give me that. Like to each their own look. Like the look. Like I guess that's what you're into. Like stop it. So I don't like that nonsense because I guarantee you that person also splurges on something equally unnecessary. So don't give me that. Don't give me that look. In fact, I know it's like anyway. But the fact is, most everybody has taken a utility, and taken it a little bit farther. And cooking, I think, is a great example. And literally, you can buy any of the food that you could bake. But so many people choose to bake things because guess what? If you bake something from scratch, you're going to get a better end result, and you're going to be more connected to the food experience, right? And that's the same with any hobby. If you prefer to drive, a manual transmission car. You are more connected to the driving experience. Do you need to drive it like that? No. Is it more complicated? Yes. Is it more difficult? Yes. But that person feels more connected to the experience. But yet, if you say, oh yeah, I have a manual car, people don't look at you like that. They're not like, oh, well, I guess if that's your thing. Like, no, it's fine. It's a totally normal thing. But yet fountain pens, anyway.
Maybe stick shift cars aren't old enough. They're not like outdated enough to get that weird look. You know what I mean?
But it's the same principle. You're taking utility. A car really just needs to get you from point A to point B. A pen really just needs to put a line on a paper. But you take it one step further, and it's fine. You just want to be more connected to that experience. So being 17, you can actually use the car analogy, I think, very easily, because when you're in high school...
I don't know, Drew. I would consider it maybe like, what if you were to like ride a horse to school? Because that was a previous mode of transportation before cars came out. No, because
people still use pens.
People still have horses.
No, that's not. Though they do not. They still use pens for writing. They do not still use horses for transportation.
Maybe you don't. I don't know.
That's not the same thing. No.
It sounds to me like you're being judgmental right now about people who uses horses for transportation.
I'm saying it's all on the same plateau, Brian.
I'm just giving you a hard time. Yeah.
I know. I'm all riled up now. Anyway, you're 17. People are into their cars at that age. If someone says, hey, guess what? I put a new carbon something tip on my exhaust. I don't know cars. Or like, hey, guess what?
I've put a stick-on hood scoop on my car.
Yeah, a supercharger. I don't know. But if they said that, no one's going to be like, oh, why'd you do that? A car just needs to, get you to school. Like, no one's going to react that way. But I bet you've got tons of people in your class or your grade that have no problem, adding some stuff to their brand new cars. So I had a dry rotted dashboard, so I'd shove action figures down into the dry rotted dashboard.
Wow.
I was very popular. Everybody thought I was super cool.
Definitely. Myself included.
Definitely. But anyway, yeah, it's all about just taking something one step further if you want to be more connected to the experience, be it cooking or driving a car, writing with a fountain pen, or writing in general. That's it. I'm done. But
fair enough, man. See,
analogies.
My mind went in a little different direction on this one. Mine went more with like, yeah, man, when I was 17, like pretty much if you do anything that's just like something that other kids don't understand, then they're going to make fun of you for it, whether it's like serious or lighthearted, just because it's different and they don't really understand it. Like that happens less as you get older. So like, I really wouldn't sweat it very much, And honestly, George Washington, he's a pretty freaking BA dude. So if people are calling you George Washington, you'd be like, yeah, that dude was freaking legit. Like, I'll be like him. Why not?
Here comes the general.
That's right. So I really wouldn't sweat it. I think it's your hobby. It's a great one to have as you age. I mean, you can literally enjoy fountain pens for the rest of your life. So truth be told, like being into that versus a lot of other hobbies you could be into at 17, it's probably one of the more rewarding ones. So I think you're just investing well in your own like time and effort and future. Plus George Washington, let's be real, he was alive about 100 years before fountain pens were invented. So they're kind of just showing their own ignorance when they're making fun of you about that. But I would just roll with it. I definitely wouldn't point out and be like, well, actually, George Washington was around before fountain pens.
He didn't really.
That's not going to help your
case. That's not going to help your case.
No, don't do that.
Yeah,
don't do that.
He didn't actually write most of the things that they give him credit for writing either.
Yeah, actually, Alexander Hamilton wrote quite a bit of what he did, That's not going to help your case at all. They'll just make fun of you more, but that's okay. But I wouldn't even worry about it. Let them make fun of you. You're going to take over the world and you'll probably, be their manager one day. And I wouldn't sweat it at all. But I think, from my own experience, I never discovered fountain pens while I was in school at all, even in college. So I didn't discover them really until I was 25. Kind of starting this business. So these days I only encounter people as an adult, and it's a little different for me because, well, many of the people I interact with, especially in COVID life here, it's usually pretty intentional, and it's usually because I'm doing some kind of business. And so people know that I'm like the fountain pen dude, so they're not like asking me weird questions about it. But when I definitely run into strangers or I'm using a fountain pen in public or something, I get all the questions you can imagine, kind of the same one Drew alluded to, which is like, really? Those are still around? People still make those? People still buy those? Wow, you have a whole business? And usually they think like I have a business like in my house like 10 years ago. My wife and I time. But then it's like, yeah, I'm in a business, about 30 people or so. And they're like, what? They're like, whoa, that's like a real business. And I'm like, well, yeah, kind of, a lot of people that like fountain pens are just kind of, spread out and the whole thing. So usually it ends up being a little more of a positive thing when I talk to people, because I don't know, I guess I sort of am in a situation where I represent like the proof that this is like an interesting, successful, popular thing. It's hard to yell. It's hard to say like, oh yeah, nobody's into those anymore, and be like, well, actually, like I wouldn't be here if that wasn't true. So they can't, they don't really make fun of, but definitely get plenty of the like people thinking that it's a quill, that kind of thing. That is pretty normal. That's what you're getting, the George Washington vibe there. But specifically, I wanted, Sam, since you wrote in here, put yourself out on a limb a little bit, I wanted to give you a specific message that you can share with your friends. So you can show them this portion of the video, and I have a message specifically for your friends. Hey, Sam's schoolmates. My name is Brian Goulet. I am the founder and owner of a successful e-commerce business and a reasonably popular social media personality. And I think it's really cool that Sam uses fountain pens. I hope that each one of you can find just as a rewarding and enjoyable hobby for yourselves like Sam has, and Sam is cool with me. So there you go. Share that with your friends, and they'll think you're cool. Or they won't, because they might be like, who's this guy wearing a Dwight Schrute Farms shirt, whatever. By the way, Schrute Farms. In case you couldn't see that. That's all I got to say.
Fantastic. All right. Our next question, Brian, comes from Caitlin Swigart, and she is asking us for the best water-resistant inks because she's going to be using them for cookbooks.
Cookbooks.
So focus less. Focus less on the cookbook aspect and more just about like the water resistant ink aspect.
Yeah. Well, I think cookbooks are good. I can't ignore.
But you're not writing. You're not writing any cookbooks right now, are you?
I'm not writing in any. I don't use cookbooks. I can't really deal with that. I don't like. I need to, but it's like it's just too much. I'm already dealing with pots and pans and kids and noises and everything. When I have a book that I'm trying to follow as well, I don't know. It's just too much for me. So I like one pan meals. I like things where I can just really approximate the things that go into it.
Oh, you're killing me. Stop it.
I don't measure
Stop.
I'm not measuring a quarter teaspoon of anything.
God.
I'm just gonna okay. I'm gonna go.
Stop.
What is okay? Two tablespoons of olive oil. Okay, blah, blah, blah. Okay, that's about 2 tablespoons. Yeah, and it works out fine. I don't bake a lot. When I bake, I do measure things out. But just cooking a regular meal. Like if I'm cooking some steaks and I'm putting some like olive oil or something or butter or whatever, I'm just gonna glob it on there and I can approximate when it's covering the pan. You know what I mean? Like I don't need to measure that mess out.
Okay.
So less measure.
But you're not making like muffins or cookies without measuring though, right?
No, I measure that stuff.
Okay, good. Okay.
Yeah,
you were really hurting me for a second.
No. Like I said, baking is where it actually really does matter a lot. But if I'm making pancakes and my kids want chocolate chips, I'm not measuring that. I'm just dumping them in there. I'm just, that seems about right. It's usually way too many, which they love. So I'm the cool dad. But yeah, in general, cookbooks, my mind goes to a place where you're talking about probably paper that's a little more ink resistant, because I imagine they make most cookbooks. Again, I don't use a lot of cookbooks, but I imagine most cookbooks are probably made to have things like spilled and smudged on them. So my mind immediately goes to pigmented fountain pen ink, because that tends to do better on very ink resistant paper. So things like the platinum carbon, series of inks. You got carbon black, you've got the pigmented blue, they got the red, pigmented rose red, and the other one, sepia, pigmented sepia. Sailor has a couple, the Seiboku, the black, and then I can't remember the blue one that they have. So I would go that route. I don't know how something like an iron gall or something like that would do, but I think that those would probably fare pretty well too. Not to steal your thunder, Drew, but I know you put some of that down on there. So that's where my mind goes, is the ones that are really good at ink resistant papers.
Yeah, I don't know if Caitlin's going to be using an ink resistant paper or not. Personally, I have a notebook that we sell. I have the endless journal, and that's what I'm using for my cookbook.
So it's like a regular notebook. It's not a like
yeah. Well, I mean, I think that if
made
you're
for cooking or whatever.
No, I think that if you're going to use fountain pens, you kind of have to get a fountain pen friendly book. I think that anything else isn't going to take fountain pen ink super well. It might.
I interpreted cookbook as like you're buying a book that has recipes in it and you're writing in a book that somebody else has produced, not like your own journal that has recipes in it. Is that how you interpreted it?
No, because we've talked recently about transcribing things and about how people are like using their fountain pens in journals to kind of like create cookbooks. So that's the way I took it. Either way, you've got Brian's recommendations for ink-resistant paper.
Yeah, I interpreted it a little differently. I was thinking like a cookbook that you would buy at like a bookstore, or like, you buy an Instant Pot and it comes with recipes, in the whatever booklet that it comes with. That's what I was thinking. So that was my approach. Now you can talk more about yours if you like to do it more.
For me, the Diatramentis document inks are a definite go-to. I mean, there's probably no better assortment of consistently probably no better assortment that what we sell that is a family of inks that have the same properties that you can more or less be guaranteed they're going to be similar to each other other than the color. So the document series by Diatramentis are a great choice. Platinum Carbon Black, like Brian said, that's a great one just overall. That's a very, very flat, solid ink. And TWSBI Blue Black is an iron gall ink, and that one, it actually is very permanent as well. And some of my personal favorites, the Noodler's water-resistant ones are very reliable. Liberty's Elysium, X-Feather Blue is actually very water-resistant. Noodler's Black is a classic, 54th Massachusetts. Baltimore Canyon Blue, and Lexington Gray.
Oh, that's a good one.
And if you want to just explore, a fun project would be to just dump water on a bunch of inks. If you go to gouletpens.com, and you can actually sort the inks by water-resistant. We've tagged everything that claims to be water resistant, so you can sort by that on our website. So I would recommend picking up a couple samples and actually testing them out. Get them in the kitchen, put some just food all over them.
Yeah.
Spritz some oil. Just tape it to the hood above your stove and just get it all disgusting.
Just go nuts.
Yeah,
I like that.
Like the Swedish chef, just flinging food and just flowing stuff everywhere.
Now, Drew, I have an off-topic question for you related to cooking.
I hope it's about Muppets.
It's not.
Dang it!
But cooking style. So when you're cooking, baking, whatever, do you just kind of like go through the pans, the measuring cups, all that kind of stuff, and just like pile it up in the sink? Finish whatever you're doing and then come back and do the dishes? Or are you a like do the dishes as you go kind of person?
I like to do the dishes as I go. My wife makes fun of me for how anal I am about cooking. I like to prep everything ahead of time. I like to put all the ingredients in little bowls and have them all laid out.
Like a cooking show. So you're like ready to host a little cooking show.
I don't want to be like measuring and dumping. It honestly helps me because I'm very scatterbrained, as you know. Yeah. ADHD is a challenge when it comes to trying to keep everything in your brain organized when you're dealing with numbers, especially for me. So it's a little satisfying to see everything kind of laid out, but also it means that I just need to focus on what needs to be dumped into the pot, not what needs to be measured. So I measure everything beforehand, and then at that point, all it is add this, add that, add that. So it's much more of a simple set of directions from then on, because otherwise mistakes happen because I'm just thinking about too many things at once.
Gotcha. Yeah. I'm a little more hybrid. Like I like to do this, especially the big dishes as I go. I'm not like meticulous about it, but I definitely don't want like a random pile of dishes in the sink, So
no, they definitely all make their way into the sink though. I don't leave a lot of garbage out on the counter.
Fair enough. Cool. All right, good stuff. All right, that's all the Q&A questions we got. Now we have a hypothetical, and I believe we have a little bit different approach to it this week. Drew, you want to explain?
We do. We have a friend-generated hypothetical question, and this came through Instagram from Books for Years, and we actually got two very similar questions. One was if you could create your own ink with certain properties, what would it be like? And I was like, ooh, that's cool, I'll add that. But then a second one came in that was a little bit more specific, and I'll read that one now. So Books for Years asks, describe each other as a fountain pen ink. What color any special properties, and why. And I thought, ooh,
It's a good
describe Brian as a fountain pen ink. Let's do that.
All right.
So, shall I or shall you, Brian?
I think you shall. I'd like to know your process. Did it just like come to you immediately, or did you have to like reflect on it a lot?
It came to me immediately.
Oh, okay.
I just jotted it down very quickly. I think the last one, I wanted like one more just to kind of like finish everything at the bottom of the paper, but
One more what?
yeah,
Did you have
just one more bullet point.
Oh,
one
I
more
thought you meant
feature.
like one more ink. I was like, geez, did you think of multiple?
No, just one more peep.
All right,
okay,
all right.
so this is going to be Brian Bluelay, and it is a deep, vibrant blue with a purple sheen. Now, I chose a purple sheen because it's Rachel's favorite color, and she's always making Brian look good from behind the scenes. So having a nice purple sheen, that's Rachel back there, you know, making him look better than he deserves.
Absolutely.
Just kidding.
No, you're not joking at all. That 100% is how this works.
And also, Brian, it has a special feature that repels yellow jackets.
Oh my gosh.
That's a bonus. That's a bonus. And the bottle itself features a cargo pocket.
Ooh, I like that.
Yeah, I know you
I like
would.
that a lot.
All right. However, Brian, it does have some limitations. If you put this pen, now I don't know exactly how it does this, but if you put this pen into an Urushi pen that has not been perfectly cured, it will not flow at all. It just won't work.
It'll just
Not at all.
Break,
It does.
break out in rashes.
It does.
It'll become toxic.
It does not like. It does not like Urushi that has not been perfectly cured.
Fair enough.
So watch out for that. It's got to be some nice Urushi. And it varies in shade over time to represent Brian's tendency to dance around hypotheticals and not being able to make up his mind. So it might start off deep blue, but who knows what it might end up as. You know, it's
Very
just,
true.
You're not going to be able to count on that.
I'll be very pleasant 1 minute and then just start throwing shade the next minute. Just randomly. When you're feeling really good, I'd knock you down.
And then finally, it does create huge ink barnacles when not in use for a while.
Oh, absolutely.
And every one of them will be named Barney.
Wow. Well done, Drew. I got it.
That's Brian Bluelay.
So
Get yours wherever nothing is sold.
So you like created an ink. See, I was trying to think of an existing ink and its properties that reflected. So we kind of took a different approach to this. So I kind of dig that. Well, I was thinking about this. I put a lot of thought into it, didn't have anything good. And then we were about to start recording and I was like, crap, I didn't decide one, and thought of one kind of at the last minute. So this is both with a lot of thought and not a lot of thought together, which is sometimes how it works in my brain. So I think if Drew was to be an existing fountain pen ink, it would be Pelican Brilliant Brown.
Oh, you hate Pelican Brilliant Brown.
Hang on, no. I said that, Pelican Brilliant Brown, it's reliable. It's a stable color.
Okay.
Loved by some, maybe not as much by others. It's not everybody's taste. The brilliance is sometimes apparent and sometimes not.
Really?
Yeah. Like the packaging may vary as to the brilliance, and
nice.
It's always there when you need it. Right?
Fair enough. All right. Well, if we ever discontinue Pelican Brilliant Brown, which, by the way, I think this is the first time I've ever heard him actually call it Pelican Brilliant Brown, by the way. If we discontinue this, you need to be worried about my job, because that might symbolize something. Because if it's always there and then all of a sudden it's not, then yeah. Anyway.
Yep.
Well, thank you, Brian. I'm glad that you sometimes feel that I'm brilliant and that you equate me to one ink that you've had a storied past with. So fair enough. It has been around since I've been around, so
before you. So just for context, Pelican ink was the second ink brand that we ever carried. This would have been around February of 2010 that we picked up that color. It was very early on, and it was one of the original 4001 colors. So I mean, when we started ink sampling, I think we had 38 colors total. It was one of those original 38, and that was one of our first experiences of not knowing what to call something, because the bottle, I think, said brown, but the box said brilliant brown. And
it was more than that, though, because you personally...
Well, then I just kind of leaned into it. First off, we didn't notice that we called it the wrong thing for a long time, because back then nobody was paying attention to us. So no one really pointed out anything that we had wrong on our site or whatever. But I think it was like after Drew started that he or somebody mentioned it, and Drew, being the brown advocate that he is, was like really hamming up like how brilliant this brown was. And I was just like, there's no such thing as a brilliant brown. Like, that is the wrong color. Like, that's the wrong color to try to describe with brilliant. Brilliant is like bright and popping and stuff like that. And so just ever since then, he had that reaction, and I was like, oh, we're going to get some mileage on this one. So I just dug into it. So I actually don't really care, but just the fact that I can just zing Drew with that every now and then, get a reaction out of him, that's just everything that I want. So
I don't know, man. I think Karub de Chypre would have some words about that.
True. That is a brilliant brown. That one, maybe that turned the tide for me, Drew. Maybe that one opened up my eyes.
Karub.
The Karub de Chypre. All right. Moving on to the next segment, the pen of the week. Well,
get ready for this.
As you know, last week, Drew and I dropped the ball. We did not, and we more than made up for it by once again totally dropping the ball. Well, not totally. Drew actually inked his pen up. I didn't. I
inked it up yesterday, though, so I'm a little ahead of you, but not by much.
Kind of ashamed. I thought that by having this accountability to you as our audience would help us. Even when things got busy, we'd be like, you know what? I know that we're going to get some crap if we don't have these pens inked up and talked about, but I don't know. Maybe we need some more accountability here, not to put that on ourselves, but we didn't do it. So kind of ashamed of that, but at the same time, we've actually had a lot going on, so I don't fully regret that, because I've been making good life choices overall. But I do feel a little disappointed that we've now dropped the ball 2 weeks in a row. So we're going to pick it up again next time. Do you think we should stick with these pens, Drew, or do you think we should do something else? Because I don't know. Maybe I just haven't been as excited to ink this one up, so it just hasn't gotten me over the hump. I don't know.
Well, what would you do? You have anything in mind?
I hate the preppy or anything, but it's just I've used a bunch of preppies, and I just don't think it's going to be that different of an experience. So I don't know.
Fair enough. Well, let's see.
We could just do like dealer's choice. We'll just come up with something.
Okay.
We don't have to do the same thing. Just whatever excites you. We'll do that next time. Maybe it'll be the preppy. Maybe we'll be like, no, you know what? I really feel like I need to do it now. Or you can choose something else. I'd say whatever gets us using something else. That's what we should do next week. Or next time, I guess. I'm going to be out next week, but we'll have a filler video. We already mentioned that before. But next time, 2 weeks from now, we'll have a different pen. Sound like a plan?
Yeah. I'm trying to think of something from a brand we haven't yet done. We'll think about it. If you have any recommendations, that would not be a bad thing, because
that's true. We'll have a little time.
Next week we'll have some time. So throw something out at us. See if it sticks.
And maybe if you chastise us and you're like, I was really looking forward to that preppy wah, then that'll be the one. But if you're like, I don't really care about that, I want to see this, then boom, that's what we'll do. So we'll be at your bidding.
Let us know.
We'll be at your bidding. All right, moving on to what is happening. What's going on the personal front, Drew?
Oh, on the personal front, I had a really great weekend, Brian. Last weekend, we did a lot of stuff on Saturday. We went to Colonial Williamsburg, had dinner with some friends. It was just like, we did stuff. And then the next Sunday, the following day, I did nothing. I sat around. I played video games all day. I didn't even leave the house, I don't think. We watched I played video games with my son. He just sat there with the Switch. I sat down playing on the PS4, and then that night my brother came over and we watched the Muppets Halloween special. And literally, I don't think I left the house. It was marvelous. So it was like, for all the stuff we did on Saturday, we did the equivalent of nothing on Sunday, if that makes any sense. I relaxed to the same level of intensity that I did things, and that just created the perfect balance. So when I came in on Monday, I felt like a weekend really happened. And
nice.
That's just great. Yeah, absolutely. Started a new game. I've been playing God of War, the 2018 version, Brian, not the older version. And Brian, I have been playing the New Game Plus.
I was totally going to ask.
Yes. Right. I'm sure you know what New Game Plus is too.
Absolutely.
That means, Brian, you beat the game, but then if you play it again, you get extra stuff.
Oh, that's
like
cool.
You have all your items and armor that you finish the game with, so the next playthrough is a little bit more fun because you're just destroying everybody.
Are you playing through like the same like storyline, or are there?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Same storyline.
Okay. See, I don't play a lot of like storyline type games. I like ones where you have some missions and stuff, but then there's like, you know, lots of like, it's more like a sandbox thing, and there's like side missions and things you can go back and, you know, like.
No, I'm all about story. I want to play interactive movies.
Interesting. Yeah. I get it.
Yeah.
Very cool.
That's me. It was a delightful weekend.
Nice. I fulfilled a dream of mine. Not really a dream. I fulfilled something that I said that I was going to do based on your recommendation, which was to try the Jimmy Dean sausage pancake corn dog thing.
Yes, that was one of the earlier episodes. I mentioned that and
early
then,
on. Yep. And then truth be told, I bought it about a month ago and I just kind of forgot about it. It's in a big box, so it was out in like my deep freezer in the garage. And I just don't go out there that often. It was like buried under other things like vegetables and stuff that I really want to eat more for like health reasons. But you know, eventually I was like, oh yeah, let me try one of these things. I think I had like 5 minutes to eat a lunch or something. I was like, all right, let me try one of these things. It takes 55 seconds to microwave it. So I tried it. I've tried it twice now. And the first time I tried it, I just did it straight up microwave, just like it says too. And it was every bit as I thought it would be. Just no judgment, good or bad. It was... Okay. It had the exact flavor, the exact consistency. It was the experience that I expected. Though I did get the blueberry pancake version, and it was very surprisingly blue inside. I was like, oh, there's some artificial dye happening here.
I've never had one of those.
It was
the regular ones.
It was pretty good. I like blueberry in general. It's like one of my favorite fruits. So it was, you know, you are one to recommend foods that are an experience. And I definitely had an experience as promised. Joseph has not. You're welcome. Joseph has not had one of these yet. He was there with me when I bought them, and then he also forgot about them. So I got to get him to try one. I imagine he's gonna like it though. But then I had it again, and I was like, you know what would make this better? You know how when you microwave something and the bread's like pretty squishy and it's just not that great? So I tried microwaving it, and then I tried putting it in the air fryer for a little bit, and that crispied up the outside just a tad and made it much more corn dog like, and that was better. So I would say if you're gonna have one of those things, cook it, you know, close to its normal time in the microwave, because that's what cooks the sausage on the inside, but then air fry it for like a minute to crisp up the outside, and you'll get a good all-around experience. But it's also just terribly unhealthy for you. Like, don't look at nutrition facts. It's just awful.
No.
But it tastes okay. Yeah. So that happened. And then had some good family time this weekend. And then I did something that actually was kind of on my bucket list. So I don't know if I've mentioned this on the Pencast or not, but like, I just like doing a lot of stuff. I love tools. I love, you know, working outside and doing various things. I've always wanted to learn how to weld. And, you know, I'm a long-time woodworker, but I've really not done a whole lot with metal. And it's just a very different thing working with metal than with wood. And it's always just, I don't know, somehow felt a bit mysterious to me how it happens. But I've been watching a lot of YouTube videos. I actually did buy a welder myself, and I've welded a couple of things. So having no teaching or experience whatsoever, I, you know, did what any good person does who wants to try something. You watch it on YouTube and then you think you know how to do it, so you try it. It's very interesting myself being on the flip side of that YouTubing experience, because obviously I'm more shooting things for YouTube about things that I know, like pens, or think I know. I'm seldom on the other side, just like not knowing something at all and trying to learn it from scratch. So I'm like grasping at straws of like, okay, who are the reliable people? And I watch people and they're like welding with no goggles, holding things with their bare hands. And I'm like, oh gosh, no, I don't want to watch this at all. This looks just tragic. Like, you're just asking for an accident to happen because you ain't messing around. You're welding stuff, it's like 3,000 degrees. Like, it's really dangerous. So like you wear protection anyway. So I got to go with a friend to his childhood home to go with his dad. We're all vaxxed and the distance and all that kind of stuff. So we were able to do it safely. But his dad has like every kind of welder. So I got to do like stick welding and MIG and TIG, and like basically I got to try like every method of welding, and it was awesome. Like I just had an absolute blast. And it's like you're literally fusing metal. Like it's pretty cool experience. So yeah, just felt good because I like learned enough on my own, and then being around, a couple other people that had some welding experience, I was then able to like take that and hold my own in conversation and learn some skills and stuff and get some experience. So that was really cool because I don't really know anybody else who welds. So, it was, it's kind of like in fountain pens. It's like, if you don't have any fountain pen friends, you just like learn about it online and like guess, and you like buy a pen and you try it and all that. But except welders are a lot more expensive and, that kind of thing. So it was nice to like have a buddy to kind of learn some of that stuff from. So yeah, now I want like every type of welder, but I don't really have a need for any of it. So, that's the dangerous part, but got to use a oxyacetylene torch and all that kind of stuff and learn how, the valves are different on certain ones. And if you turn it the wrong way, it can explode and all this kind of stuff. And I'm like, oh, cool. Awesome. Great. Sweet. Just like giant tanks of explosives in your basement that if you forget and, you can blow yourself up. Sweet. Pens are safer. I like pens. Cleaning pens. Okay, I turned the piston the wrong way. Oh, it clicked. Okay, no problem. It's not going to explode and like blow up in your face. So welding, a little higher risk, but it's kind of fun. And then also the guy had a tractor with a backhoe as well. Never gotten to use one of those before. Watched a lot of videos on that too. And that was basically every bit as fun as you would think that it is. I mean, you basically become like a 7-year-old who like sees construction equipment and you're like, I want to do that. And then you do it and you're like, I'm like a superhero. I'm scooping large buckets of dirt and moving it. And that just is awesome. So yeah, just a really fun, like fulfilling kind of like living some childhood dreams out there, learning how to do stuff. So that was my weekend.
Fun. Outside things.
And it was beautiful weather, Drew. I mean, it was like 70 degrees. The leaves are falling. It's gorgeous.
It was. Williamsburg was quite nice.
I bet it was. All right, moving on to what's on your desk. Drew, what are some pen things that you have going on in your life?
Well, I still have my Safari with the bear on it, the brown Safari.
Oh yeah, the line Safari.
Mm-hmm. I have not inked it up yet, and I think that's partially due to the fact that my 3-pen limitation that I have placed on myself has been challenging as of late because I've been.
You want to just ink it up, don't you? You just want to.
I do, but I don't. But I don't want to unink anything, and so I am not, Brian. I am maintaining. I'm maintaining discipline.
You can just ink it up. You can just put ink in it and just go at it.
No, sir.
Totally an option.
No,
it's totally an option. I'm just saying.
So that's been a challenge. I have the Sailor Pen of the Year 2021, the red one in an extra fine. And that is my kind of, this will write on pretty much any surface pen, like normal writing pen. Okay. It's an extra fine. It'll write on any type of paper. It's just a beautiful, beautiful pen. It always starts up because it's got that beautiful Sailor cap. And then I've got a TWSBI ALR with a big honkin', 1.1 on it, just for juicy fun writing. And then that middle pen, that's the pen that's getting switched out. And I've had those two inked up for like over a month now. And that middle pen keeps getting switched out. And so I'm not really swapping out 3 pens. I'm pretty much just swapping out 1 pen and keeping those other 2 because I have a system, Brian, where there's like a fun pen, an extra fine pen, because sometimes you just need an extra fine, and then that middle pen is kind of like just the other. So that usually has the target on it to get swapped out.
I think you could give yourself a free pass. Like if you've had these pens inked up for a solid month, and you're going to keep them inked up, I think you could kind of count them like separately, just kind of don't count them in the 3. You can have those 2 and then have the 3 that you rotate out. That's what I'm saying you could do. It's just an option. It's an option. You'd have my permission to do that.
Oh, thank you so very much.
Yeah, you're welcome. I know.
Thank you so very much.
Yeah.
But no, I have been enjoying that. Brian, I came into possession of one of the pens that I've been wanting for a very, very long time, a Pilot E95S.
Oh, okay. Yeah, we just talked about that one.
So that is my 3rd pen right now. And I acquired this second.
So that one usurped your LAMY in the rotation, did it? You snuck that one in as your 3rd? Okay.
So no, this one usurped the 823. I had the 823 inked up.
Well, I mean, you didn't put the line LAMY in the rotation next.
Oh, yes,
you put
yes,
that one.
yes,
So you
yes,
got
yes.
the LAMY first, but you held on to that.
did.
And so it wasn't,
I
it really
did.
isn't
Well-
a matter of having a third pen cleaned out then, is it? Because you did change that pen out. You just
did.
chose
I
not to
did.
put that pen in. I think you need to be honest with yourself here, Drew, about the choices that you've made with your life.
It's been
You
difficult.
like how hard I'm
but,
giving Drew time on his
I've
self-imposed
been-
things when I have no self-control whatsoever, and like I'm being judgy here. I'm totally just doing this to be, a
I've
jerk.
been loving the E95S though. I am using one of my favorites, Noodler's Nightshade.
Ooh, that's a good one.
I actually wrote an entry in my cookbook with it. I did a one of my favorites. It's a cinnamon donut muffin recipe.
That sounds awesome.
Oh, there's a lot of butter in that one.
Oh, that's when you know it's good.
The final step, literally after you bake the muffins, is to dunk the tops in butter and then roll them in a cinnamon sugar mixture. So there's this like buttery, sugary, cinnamony like crust on the top.
So good.
Oh, it is amazing.
Wow.
It's amazing.
Wow.
I love them. So so I'm continuing to do that, and that's pretty much it. That's the then what's on my desk. I did acquire the Sleepy Hollow pen. So
Yeah, you did.
Perk for working at the company.
What number did you get? You got to tell everybody what number you got.
I got 884.
Nice.
I've got my cake
Nice.
pen here, which is 84. I've got the I've got 84.
You know what you like.
I do.
Yeah.
What's on your desk, Brian?
Yeah, so the thing that I got, actually I got this a little while ago, but I had not gotten it from the office, gotten it home, actually like gotten to play with it a little bit. And I got the LAMY Dialog CC, which, we've not talked about a whole ton because we got like one small shipment and we're not going to get more until probably next year. But I thought I would just show a little thing because Drew, you pointed out something to me that I completely forgot about, didn't realize, whatever. And then I wanted to show it, but I also forgot to grab it. So give me like a hot second. I'll go grab it. It's right over there. And I will come back.
Sure. I actually do think we've talked about it. I think we've talked about it like the last couple of times in passing, but maybe.
Okay. I have no idea what you just said, so hopefully it was
I
favorable.
basically told everybody you didn't know what you're talking about.
Largely true. So it comes in a pretty big box. This isn't going to be like a full review or anything, but there's this one little feature on it and the regular LAMY Dialog 3, right? The CC version and the regular one. And it's kind of
it's called
kind of a neat little thing.
the twisty nubbin.
The twisty nubbin, as Drew likes to call it. So it's nice. It's presentable. It's got a little thing going on there. It's got a little LAMY like pen sleeve, little leather sleeve. It's got the pen, so cute, down in here. So it's shorter than a regular Dialog 3. But Drew pointed out something, that if you lift up the bottom, which is going to be really hard for me to do, and not like drop it and fling it across the room. It's in there
it's
really,
really in there.
It's in there really annoyingly good. I'd rather have that than stuff like flopping around everywhere though. So you go under here and it's like, oh, what is this little silvery doodad? I've never seen this on any other pen. That's because it's not on any other pen. So it's just so specific to the Dialog 3 and the CC. It's, like Drew, would you call it a twisty nubbin? So, it's just this knurled metal thing with threads on it.
Nubbin.
So,
Brian.
Nubbin. So just for
nubbin.
context, if you're not familiar with this pen, it is a retractable nib pen. You twist it and the nib comes out like so. And the way this works is it's got a door. I'll see if you can see that. You twist it, the little door comes down, right, as you twist it, and then the twisting action then makes the nib come out. So in order to fill the pen and clean it or whatever, you screw it the other direction. It unthreads. That allows you to take the pen apart. And then you've got the whole nib unit. If you're familiar with the Pilot Decimo, or the Vanishing Point, it's kind of like that, where it has kind of an exterior, like an exoskeleton body of the pen. And then the actual like whole writing portion of it, you got the nib and the nib unit, the feed, converter cartridge, whatever. That's a whole separate thing from the rest of the pen. So, that's fine. Great. You ink it up, just like this. You just pretend like this is the pen. You ink it up and then you stick it back in the exoskeleton and you go about your merry way. So what this thing is, if you are trying to, I guess, just clean it, if you get ink up in the hood part here. This stumpy nubbin, twisty nubbin, whatever you call it, goes.
I like stumpy nubbin actually.
It goes onto the threads at the back here, and then that allows you to then twist and open the hood without having the nib unit in there. So you can get whatever, a cotton swab or whatever else you want to kind of get in there if you want to, like, if you get some ink kind of splattering in there or something like that. You're not supposed to like totally just dunk this thing. You don't fill the pen, by dunking this part into the ink bottle or anything like that. That'll make a giant mess because there's all kinds of like small parts and stuff in here to make this hood operate. If you dunk this thing in ink, it's going to just be like ink is going to be creeping out of there for like forever because there's all these little nooks and crannies for it to hide in there. But if, just in normal use of the pen, you get ink that comes out of the nib, just as you're carrying it around or whatever, you can swab it out by attaching this little doodad. So wasn't sure that was something that most people were aware of. Drew mentioned it and I was like, what is that thing? And I was like, oh, I maybe knew that at some point, but I totally forgot that was even a thing. So thought it was worth mentioning. So since this is a more recent acquisition of mine, thought it would be something cool to show. So there you go. Thank Drew for mentioning it, and then thank me for showing it to you.
The same thing happened to us. We had a customer reach out, and then Jessica on our customer care team asked me, and I'm like, yeah, there's something. There's a little something that's in there. I don't really know what it's for, but there's a little metal lump that does something.
So it wasn't purely just like you remembering. You were
Oh, no, absolutely. I remembered that I forgot what it was.
You remembered that there was a thing.
Yes, I knew that I had looked at it at some point and it had left my sad, pathetic memory. But so I went and looked.
I mean, to be fair, Drew, there's a lot to remember. When you talk about every component of every pen that we've ever carried, it's just too much for anybody to remember.
It's a pretty unique one, yeah. And I actually looked at we didn't have any CCs when I had to look into that, so I actually went over and looked at one of the standard dialogues.
Okay.
But it's the same piece.
I'm trying to find my standard dialogue, and it must be in a random case over by my desk or something. I'm not finding it at the ready here.
We're having a pretty standard dialogue right now.
Hey-oh. Yeah, we are. Darn, I was going to try and show it in comparison to the CC, but that does not look like it's going to happen. Sorry.
Yeah, what does CC stand for, Brian?
Exactly.
Yes.
I actually don't know. You could say like cartridge converter, but that's what the Dialog 3 is as well. So I don't think it's a filling mechanism thing. Maybe it's
crunchy
some kind
cabinet.
of like compact or something like that. I don't know. It could be like a abbreviation of something in German. Maybe that's something. I don't know. I never did get like an official answer of what it is. So I don't know. I think we can make it up. You got any ideas of what we can just unofficially start calling it?
Crunchy cabinet.
Crunchy cabinet. Doesn't make any sense.
Curved.
It's got to be related to
curved crumpet.
Maybe it's something with compact. Compact.
No, that's silly.
Compact.
Don't be ridiculous.
Curvature. No. Crispy, crunchy. Crispity crunch.
There you go.
Crispy.
No. You have to have an
crunch,
object. Yeah. No. See, you're doubling up on your word types. You need to have crispy and then a noun.
Okay. Crispy cupcake.
All right, we're getting there. It's better though if you have something that can't actually be as it's described.
Chewy cupcake.
Okay, we're getting there.
No, I'm going in the wrong direction. Okay, fair enough. All right, they're brilliant.
We have lost all of our viewers and listeners at this point.
Yes,
so
we have. Well, we didn't have any to lose. Anyway.
If you're still watching, I'm sorry that you cannot reach the computer to turn it off or reach your phone. I'm sorry your phone's frozen and you're still having to listen to us.
They're too busy making some cinnamon donut cupcakes is what they're doing.
Ooh, yes.
Indeed. Well, that's all we got for you this week. We're going to go ahead and wrap things up. We want to thank you all for watching. Please give us some feedback. Let us know how we're doing. Ask us some questions in the comments. Be sure to share, like, subscribe, whatever. Just do something with us because we enjoy interacting with you.
We do.
You can send us an email at pencast@gouletpens.com if you're listening to the audio version of this and you are not in a YouTube-friendly environment to leave a comment. And I have a random fact for you all that each fall, the black-capped chickadee's tiny hippocampus enlarges by 30%. which enables it to remember where it collected seeds in different spots in trees and on the ground. So this is a little bird that literally its brain changes in the fall so that it remembers where it put its food better. How cool is that?
Oh, that is really cool.
Don't you wish you could do that, Drew? Just like,
oh my God.
Like you could just like grow the part of your brain that helps you remember stuff. That'd be awesome.
Honestly, yes. And at Christmas, if I could remember things that people have mentioned over the course of the year, that then I can be like, I remember she liked that one thing. Because I'm always wondering, like, I don't know what to get them. But if I had perfect recall, I would be much better at gift giving come holiday times.
See, I think you would need to have that larger hippocampus though at the time that you needed to remember the thing, not at the time you need to recall it. Like when the memory is planted, that's what I'm saying. That's what this bird. Bird does. So like as the bird is like, I'm gonna put all my seeds in these spots over here, they can then recall it later because that part of their brain is enlarged. So,
all right. Well.
Yeah. Oh well. I guess we're both just a couple of lost causes over here.
Yeah. Hippocampus is just staying the way it is.
What are you gonna do? What are you gonna do with those hippocampi? You know.
If only I had something to write down.
If only I had a convenient way to write things down and remember them better. If only. Anyway, thank you all for watching. We really appreciate it. And right on.